Prime Minister Marape, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you.
PNG already has defence agreements with Australia. Why do you need to elevate it to a mutual defence treaty?
It's a natural progress from where we have come from. 2 years after independence in 1977, we signed a status of force agreement. Lately, in 2013, we signed a defence cooperation agreement. And the defence treaty is just a natural progression from where we've come from, bearing that we have many things in similarity than the differences. So a natural progression from where we've started.
As many as 10,000 PNG troops could be incorporated into the Australian Army. Could it be even more than that 10,000 number?
It's subject to the working of the treaty. If Australia needs personnel to be recruited, Papua New Guinea has a youthful population, most of them complete grade 12 and subject to the due processes. Papua New Guineans can be enlisted into Australian Defence Force. They will not be reporting to the PNG Defence Force commander. They will be Australian Defence Force personnel. Of course, in PNG ourselves, it is in our interest to build a defence force to a 7,000-man force that is strong in our land, sea and air capacities.
Did Chinese officials make any direct or indirect threats as to the consequences if you signed this treaty with Australia?
Not at all, and I want to commend Chinese who gave us full respect to our sovereign interests, and they understand very clearly where we've come from. In 1975, prior to September 16, we were part of the Australians.
Will the Australian Defence Force eventually be able to base troops in Papua New Guinea?
It will be PNG troops in PNG. We're building our own PNG Defence Force. Our own PNG Defence Force will have work conditions on par with Australian Defence Force, but the interoperability, PNG Defence Force coming down using Australian facilities, Australian Defence Force going up there using PNG Defence Force facilities, part of the construct of these arrangements.
But actual ADF bases in PNG, is that a possibility?
Not at this stage, not at this stage.
But possibly in the future?
Possibly, but right now our first and Australian government and Canberra knows very well our interest to build 7,000-man defence force that includes new battalions, our sea wing, our air wing, our land wing, as well as technology that assists our defence to be capable defence force up there.
Have you discussed with anybody in the Australian defence establishment or political establishment the possible locations of those bases?
Not at this stage. It's something that there's an ongoing annual dialogue between our defence ministers and our civil servants and our forces. It is a discussion that they will have to progress.
Just on the other side of the equation, is Australia committing to assisting Papua New Guinea in the event of cross-border raids between West Papua and Papua New Guinea?
Not so much. We have a healthy dialogue with Indonesia. Did
you discuss the treaty with the Indonesians before you signed?
Not at all. It's a matter between PNG and Australia and Indonesia.
Will they be concerned?
We will be informing Indonesia and many other nations on the final details of this treaty. So I'm 100% certain Indonesia will not be offended. They clearly understand where our need is. It is also in our shared interest that we have clearly, Indonesia and PNG has 800 kilometers of land borders.
Do you anticipate that the ADF could be involved on that border in the future?
The shared use of facilities is something that we've agreed on in this.
You mean in the proximity to the border? Could you, sorry, to be clear, do you contemplate the presence of Australian Defence Force on the border with West Papua?
Well, it's not West Papua in the context. It's a PNG-Indonesia border. So.
And do you anticipate seeing Australian soldiers on that border?
In terms of the operations with PNG, will be in PNG as much as PNG will be in Australia. And whether it's in the border or in PNG, it's PNG side, Australia will be there also.
And do you think that Indonesia would have concerns about Australian forces being in the proximity of that border?
I can't speak.
It's a very sensitive border, right?
I can't speak for Indonesia. I can't speak for Indonesia.
Will you be discussing that will your defence or foreign ministers be discussing that with the Indonesians?
They're valued partners with us, and as part of the ongoing dialogue with Indonesia, we have our own sort of secret relations with them. Those matters will be discussed also.
Prime Minister Marape, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.